Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome back to Inside the Lines. We have the Combine starting this week, so we want to start to get ahead of some of these lines that might start to steam as news comes out throughout the week. So we're going to start toying with the NFL draft here. And of course, we have today's NBA and tonight's college basketball as well. So I'm going to bring in Steven and Jake here quick. Jake, you're our NFL draft guy, okay? Any opening thoughts for the people? Any advice before we get into today's episode here?
Well, it's a bummer that Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams are both not participating in the Combine, but I think for Jaden Daniels, his thought is that you're not going to lose any stock just playing your pro day because those numbers are so inflated, especially performing at your home stadium at LSU with all your coaches giving you all the times. He's going to probably run a 4.2 and bench press 30 reps. So. Yeah. If you like
Jaden Daniels of Combine performance, when they always talk about the North Korean dictator, he got hole-in-one for an entire round. Anyway, sorry.
Exactly. So I think that if you like Jaden Daniels, you get him at to be the second overall pick and the third overall pick at plus money. So one of them's plus 120, one's plus 140. So maybe you hedge that play a little and put like 2 units on each of that, and you finish with some plus money there. I don't love that play right now, but I think it's pretty safe with him sitting out of the Combine.
Yeah. And we have some graphics for all the other rounds as well. I just wanted to address first overall pick here. Obviously, Caleb Williams, the overwhelming favorite here. Big Cheesy asking about Marvin Harrison in the chat. People have talked about this before. Is there any version of this story where Caleb Williams isn't number one?
I actually saw a mock draft with Marvin Harrison going number one, but it just doesn't make sense in my opinion, because if they're not going to draft Caleb Williams number one, why not switch with Washington? If it's Washington, that they would 100% do that. So why not trade one spot down? You could get Marvin Harrison number 2, and you could pick up a second round pick or even a first round next year if you do that trade. So that's why I don't love Marvin Harrison to be number 1 overall pick, just because it just doesn't makes sense if I'm Chicago.
So this mock draft had Harrison to Chicago as the 1 pick? Oh, no, that's silly.
That's silly. It doesn't. Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about number 2 here. Drake May, a favorite, but Jaden Daniels not too far behind here. And then we can talk about Marvin Harrison Jr. again. Are we pretty confident this will be the Drake May spot?
I'm not that confident because I'm a big Jaden Daniels over a Drake May fan, but Drake May, it's going to be interesting to see what he does in the Combine, because he's one of these guys who's pretty much built for the Combine. He's 6'6", he could run. I could see him running surprisingly fast. He just reminds me so much of Justin Herbert. He's going to be a really good tester. So I don't love taking Drake May minus 140, but I think that if you take Jaden Daniels here and at number 3, you're getting some good value.
I think Daniels is going to do the move to put on weight, and he's going to come in tall and heavier than people expect, and then he's going to drop whatever weight and run a blazing time in his pro. So everyone's going to be like, oh, he's 2 inches taller than Caleb and 10 pounds heavier and faster, and then he'll zoom up to the 2 spots. So I like Daniels because the things that would take him higher are totally in his control,
right?
And so it's just an easy formula. If you combine that with his actual tape and his performance this year versus May's tape and performance this year is not nearly as good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I feel like, I guess if you like Drake May and you feel confident he would be the number 2, do you think this is an act now situation? Do you think minus 140 around that number would be the best you can get him, or do you want to wait thinking Jaden Daniels might surpass him at this number 2?
I think these could flip.
I think it's good, honestly, if you get Jane. If you could probably get Drake May plus money eventually, because there's going to be some report that comes out that Jaden Daniels is the favorite, even if it's a misleading report. So I think at some point these are definitely going to flip.
I can't wait for all the Twitter drama and to see it influence all the lines. And Eric will be on that for us as well. But I'll definitely be trying to dive in and find the tea and the rumors going around at the Combine as well. This is an interesting spot here. We'll talk about the number 3 pick, because this is where we start to hit all plus money, which is a little more in our wheelhouse, like to give you guys the value plays here. JJ McCarthy, 4th shortest odds here. Do you think that this is possible for him at all, or do you think it's still going to be somewhere between Drake and Jaden Daniels?
The steam on McCarthy is pretty strong because everyone's talking about, they didn't call him to pass very much. I mean, Penn State didn't pass at all in an entire half. But when they needed it, the relatively small sample size of 3rd and long, got to have it. He was like perfect, and so all the physical skills are there, the size, speed, strength, arm strength. And then his execution in those prime spots is kind of flawless this year. So, and then the leadership qualities and all that other stuff. So yeah, I could see him. I could see him going up a lot higher. Again, I'm not any kind of scout. I'm just paying attention closely to what people are talking about.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on here. Let's go to first non-quarterback. Obviously, Marvin Harrison Jr., the overwhelming favorite here. I know Jake earlier was talking about maybe putting a sprinkle on some of these guys behind him, just in case there's a situation where he isn't the first.
Yeah, I think that Marvin Harrison, my 650, that's a little too steep for me. And especially if the quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, and some team falls in love with an offensive lineman, I think on offensive lineman, you're getting good value on Joe Alt plus 800 or Olu Fashanu, the Penn State offensive lineman. He's up plus 2,000. I think that those could definitely. I think they're probably only going to go down from here, plus 800, plus 2,000, just in case one of them kills the combine at 6'6", runs a 4.8.
Yeah.
So just there's a freak show. I don't think Marvin Harrison's competing in the combine, so his stock's not going to go up, not going to go down. But I think some of these offensive linemen could definitely be risers.
Okay,
I saw Jared first as the 28th overall pick in a mock draft, so I would stay off first to be the first non-QB selected.
Yeah, I saw that too. I was looking at mock drafts. I was stunned to see DraftKings had him as this short of odds, considering where he fell in a lot of the mock drafts here. But I guess I don't make the rules. If anyone has any questions about specific teams, please let us know. But one team we were honing in on here were the Jets. Offensive lineman at minus 145. Not ideal value, but definitely probably the best we're going to get. And we're feeling pretty confident this will be the situation, Steven.
Yeah, I'm a very conservative person. I don't mind the minus 150 locks because everyone knows that the Jets have pretty much the worst offensive line last year and it cost them Aaron Rodgers' season, well, arguably. And and this draft is loaded with, I think, 5 left tackles that are projected to be in the first round. But there's not a lot of consensus about who's the best one, which leads me to believe that there's 2, 3 players that, depending on who you ask, are the best ones. So the Jets, I think, are drafting at 10. So given the top quarterback and then the number of wide receivers, it's safe I think it's pretty safe the Jets will have their pick of whoever's best at that point. And so I think that wide receiver is a luxury when considering who they have. And a defense overall is somewhat of a luxury, given that that's one of their strengths. So I think offensive line is the thing that's going to move. So I see this as minus 180, minus 200.
Okay. Nice little act now moment here. Josh Davis staying on the topic of offensive linemen. The Titans to take a lineman. I'm sure that's got to be. I can look at that right now. Let me find it. I know in the mock draft, someone had Joe Alt going to the Titans, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're posted on DraftKings right now.
Yeah. But speaking of this is not exact same question, but I know, Jake, you had an awesome record last year in terms of profits, but a lot of it was picking the exact teams specifically.
Well, Titans at plus 1,300. That was nice.
So if we like this could be an interesting one with a specific offensive lineman, the best one that we think they're going to fit the Titans scheme.
Yeah, maybe. I like looking at mock drafts like a month before, and then they all become jumbled. But sometimes the earlier mock drafts are a lot more accurate than the late, because the late ones they steam in the wrong direction because some Schefter tweets out that I'm hearing this guy's like to that. But sometimes you have to throw that away and go with what you hear initially right after the combine.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So these are lines that aren't out yet, but this is kind of where we would make the lines. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. If we were to put some of these guys head to head, a big popular one right now, Drake May versus Jaden Daniels that we talked about. Some of the offensive linemen, like Jake was mentioning as well. You have Penix and McCarthy here. And then here are some of the high name mock draft professionals in the industry and who they would be picking to go first. So let's run through the list here, Jake, we'll start with Drake May versus Jaden Daniels. Interesting that a few guys have Jaden Daniels to go before May.
Yeah, I went with I set the line at -140, Daniels plus 120 based on the odds to be the second overall pick here. It's interesting. Daniels was getting some steam. Then Jeremiah put out May, but I still think I'd go with the plus money on Daniels because I think at some point there's going to be an article leaking that has Daniels locked to go number 2, so you could get May at plus money eventually and kind of arbitrage that number.
If Daniels takes 100 clips and hits the crossbar from 80 yards out, then he'll be up there like May did.
Exactly.
So those are two guys we're going to actually want to watch head to head through this combine and see where those lines move. Let's move over to Joe Alt again. You were talking about him versus Fashanu here at plus 175.
Well, he'd be like plus 125, right? You wouldn't be offering.
Yeah, it probably
from a head to head perspective.
Head to head, probably plus 130 maybe. But I think that Alt's getting a lot of steam, especially to be like the first non-QB taken. He's well ahead of Fashanu. So
is it safe to say that the difference is Fashanu is the more athletic one, and so if
Alt's more steady one.
Close, if Alt's within a second on the 40 or even half a second, and within 3 reps on the bench and quarter of an inch in his arm length, then all of a sudden Alt will steam to -300.
Yeah, I think Fashanu was on like Bruce Feldman's freak list like the last couple of years, where he has like the best athletes in all college football. So I don't mind taking him at plus money to be ahead of Alt if they do offer this line. This is still just one of our what we're guessing the lines could be about, but just in case he kills the combine, because apparently he is this athletic freak, where Alt's more of this steady player. And sometimes if he kills the combine, he could get him at maybe goes to flips in the other direction.
So I think I'll tee up some whatever Fashanu props right before he's running his 40. And the second that he runs like a 4.8 or less, click, pricing you get.
I want to move down to Penix versus McCarthy here, because it seems like a lot of the mock draft guys are on McCarthy to go first. We agree with that, right? And follow-up question, at what price becomes too pricey to take McCarthy to go ahead of Penix?
Anything above like -1, anything above -200, because it's kind of like a game pick. Like if it's a money line that you really like, I usually my thing is up to -200, -250 is like the max I'll go on a game pick.
See, I think this line. I think you guessed. I think this would be more like -400 to plus.
I think so. Right now, I think
the weird thing is that
last month it would have been this line.
Yeah.
I think now it's probably
here's the
-350.
If Washington had blown it to Texas because of a fumble and then a bad special teams play, but Penix showed out along with Odunze, then I would think this line's correct. But then the second Penix actually lost to a really awesome Michigan team and number 1 defense, then all of a sudden his stock fell, right? Everyone right after that Texas game is like, oh, Penix could be a top 5 player. And then all of a sudden he's not. So that's the weird thing. He gets dinged for pulling that game out.
And he also doesn't have any ACLs left, which is not very attractive to an NFL.
He's also like
36.
Yeah, he's older than McKenzie, and maybe he's probably like 25 years old, 24, 25.
Yeah, that's not exactly ideal for the NFL, in my opinion. But I agree with McCarthy to go first. I am curious where this line comes out and if it's going to be insanely dramatic or something that's actually worth putting money on. All right, any other draft questions? Certainly ask them in the chat. We'll be keeping a close eye on the combine and the line movement and the steam that's coming with that. Let's head over to the association, some money that can be made tonight. Steven, we'll head over to the model here. We got a couple plays for only a few games on the slate today. I saw Scott asking about Brooklyn being favored against Memphis. Yeah. We'll certainly get to that, but we can start with Toronto at Indiana here.
Yeah, we got a slight lean against the spread on Indiana, but I'm going to go with one that I got last on the 22nd when the season started again, which was Tyrese Halliburton over Steals. You want to act now because this was at plus 175 on Hard Rock just a few hours ago. So if you guys are daily viewers, on last Wednesday, I think we gave out this pick, which was Halliburton this year's steals are way down from 1.6, which would have been good enough to be top 5 2 years last season, to just barely over 1 this season. And there was like plus 145 money on over 1.5 steals. And he got 2, and then he's followed up with 4. So he's at 8 steals in his last 3 games. So the question is, he's regressing to the mean, but which mean is it? Is it this year's mean, 1.1, which would lead on under, which is what the odds makers are setting it at? Or is it on last year's mean, which was 1.6, means he's going to go over? So you have to run models at 1.3 steals with plus 165 on the board. I think it's worth it. Again, one of the high steal games was on February 14th at Toronto. We got 2 steals, and I like Halliburton at the value here.
Okay. Halliburton steals, one of those good old faithfuls that we like to go back to. Let's head on over to the next game here with our Detroit Pistons that almost pulled out a win Saturday night against Orlando to get closer to their 14.5 win total. We were really, really close there. That was a tough blow. But we're going to go back to Sar Thompson here, who should have a pretty low line right now considering his averages. Yeah,
I know. I'm sorry. We chatted a little before you went your early edge, and I convinced you to, I think, take Sar Thompson over points, rebounds, and assists. And I still say it was a good play, but he had some foul trouble, which cost him minutes. But I'm going in our value. We don't have value on his points, but we do have value on his rebounds and assists individually. So I'll take both. His road average is considerably higher than his home average. I'm not sure why, but that's a big gap in terms of percentage difference, 9.2 to 7.3. His recent average is low, but again, that's skewed heavily by that one game with his foul trouble. He was on a 7-2 over streak before that, and had double digit 12 and 13 in 2 of his last 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I have a hyper fixation on Detroit player props right now, so I'm pretty much in on this. I have bad beat with the foul trouble last night or on Saturday night, but I mean, all the right logic there. Not to hop backwards, but I missed a question about TJ McConnell back to the Pacers game. 13.5 points and assists. He's not really a player we've talked a lot about this season.
We only have 10.4, but we have to update this with Neesmith out. This is a slightly older database by Neesmith playing like 75%, 60%. With him out, McConnell last couple of games has popped. So it looks like the line's adjusted probably 3. We probably don't have any value on the over, but we don't necessarily have a value on the under, as this projection would say.
Okay. All right, worth a shot looking there. We can move on to the third game of the night with Brooklyn going to Memphis. Brooklyn is 1.5 point road favorites. Why is this?
I don't know, and I agree with the other comments. So I like Memphis, and the good thing is the money's coming in. So it was plus 110 earlier. Now there's a plus 120 right before the show on BetMGM. So maybe in weight, I don't know. Brooklyn has been bad on the road all year. They've lost their last 4 by an average of 25 points. Meanwhile, Memphis is started the year just ridiculously bad at home. Like I think they were 4-19 and maybe 5-20. But since then, the last 4, they've covered all 4 in a row, and they've won 2 of the last 4. And the big problem with them for most of the season is they barely shot over 50% on 2s. But their last 5 games, they've shot 54, 54, 55, 59, 56. So seem a little more efficient in that area as Vince Williams has been playing better, almost as a point guard kind of. And so I think that I like that. And Brooklyn doesn't seem to be having much of an effort. When you fire your coach, it's usually a sign that the ownership think that the players have tuned them out.
Yeah, this is a little concerning to me.
Yeah, this is, I think, a lazy line just based on Memphis's bad road splits, home splits. But again, I think that's just that's an aberration. This is a team that's nearly 500 on the road and just visibly bad overall at home, and that's skewing things.
Yeah, it's a little weird there. All right, let's move on to the last game of the night with Miami headed to Sacramento. We like Miami to cover. I know there's some questions in the chat about some player props here, but why do we like Miami plus the 7?
Yeah, this is weird. The line is reflecting the fact that Jimmy Butler is suspended for that fight, and Rozier is a game time decision, and Hero is a game time decision. So the fact is Jimmy Butler's awesome, but this year in 18 games without Butler, they've had a better point differential in games without him than the 30s, nearly 40 games with him. And then Rozier, he's only been in Miami for maybe a month, but they've killed teams in the last few games with Rozier out. Now, both of them out. So my theory is that, the Miami's been playing pretty well on the road all year. They can run the offense through Bam, who can distribute the ball at center when needed. He did that a lot a few years ago, especially. They haven't been better with Rozier. They have the offense to make up for Hero in terms of shooting, with Caleb Martin and who's his face from Michigan, Duncan Robinson. So I think that to cover 7, you want to act now. It was at 7.5. Unfortunately, I think the best price is now 7. So, and it's moved to 6.5 in most spots. Then the Kings are just have the model doesn't like the Kings at home because they haven't been very good at home with just a minus 1.2 average spread, 11 and 14 cover at home, and they allow 6 more points per game at home.
Let's move on. Let's look at some player props here. Some questions in the chat about Malik Monk. His PRA is 24.5.
Yeah, we have the exact same, pretty much 24.2. He's been all over the map. He had some huge games and some not so huge games, and so it's kind of hard to tell when you're going to get one. You could either go way over, or way under.
What about Keegan Murray? His pointless line is 13.5.
We have him at 12, but I know he's getting more run. He's been playing more minutes, but they haven't been actually resulting in a lot of points. 11, 16, 6, and 6.
What's his volume like?
9 shots a game.
Yeah, I don't love that.
Yeah. He's not taking the step that I thought he would take.
Right. You know who could be taking the step? The Detroit Pistons tonight. I feel it.
We need it.
Not against
All
the
right.
Knicks.
Yeah, fair. We can wait till after the Knicks. Doesn't have to be personal. All right. That's all the NBA value we have right now. Steven, if you want to look in the chat, I'll send you there for any more questions that we see. Jake, let's head over to some college, a little college baseball, a little college basketball. We'll start with college basketball here. The classic little 2-legger money line parlay here. We're looking at NC Central. And what the school? Where is this school? I've never heard of it.
Nichols? I think Nichols is in Louisiana, I want to say. Pretty sure it's in Louisiana. Let me look it up. State University. I don't know. They have a good baseball team. I know that. But I just like, so it's in Thibodaux, Louisiana. So that's your fun fact of the day. Nichols State University was ever in the trivia. Thibodaux, Louisiana. But I just like I like NC Central a lot today. We have the money by 10 as minus 4.5 point favorites. It's actually moved up to minus 5.5, as Nick has just said. It's 5.5 right now. But I like their money line at around minus 250, but I don't like taking minus 250 and straight up. So I like pairing it with something around minus 400 to get it close to even. And Nichols fit that mold today. Their spreads around minus 9.5. They don't have much value on the spread with the money by 10. But this 2-leg parlay close to even money line as possible is something I like.
Mm-hmm. I like that there. Let's move over to one more money line parlay that we like. TCU here versus Baylor.
Yeah, just going with TCU money line, not a parlay. But just TCU is very good at home. I think they're 12-3 straight up. Baylor's just 4-5 on the road. So while Baylor's really good at home, they struggle on the road. The line's around minus 2.5 with TCU winning by 6. TCU was one of my sleepers to make the Final Four before the season. I have a future on them, and I think they're starting to get it all together right now. I think they could definitely make a run.
Mm-hmm. And I know we had a 1 o'clock baseball pick here. Any updates on how this is going? Have we gotten a chance to look?
Yeah, let me check that right now. Top of the second, 0-0. So
we're not losing.
It looks like not losing. It looks like Austin Peay left a couple of runners on base in the first, but I was surprised that Austin Peay is getting plus 140, especially since they're at home. Both teams, this is their 4th game. Austin Peay, I'm pretty sure they're 7-0 in the season or 6-0 in the season. So I was surprised with that. I did post another play on Twitter or X. I have San Jose State plus 3.5 versus Stanford, and I have the over 13.5 in that game as well, and a same game parlay, which is pretty cool that Hard Rock offers same game parlays in college baseball. So I'm testing that out today. Just fading Stanford. I know our old buddy John loved to fade Stanford, so that pick's for him right there.
Yeah. For our guy, John. Love to fade Stanford.
For our guy, John. I love to fade Stanford. I know he picked Penn State at like plus 340 to beat Stanford the other day, and he nailed that pick. So I like fade Stanford as well. They're just not that good this season because they lost a lot. They lost Brandon Montgomery, the transfer portal, and they have a lot of young pitching. So fade them early in the season. They always catch fire late in the season, but right now is a good spot to fade Stanford.
I'll add that to our college baseball 101 rules. Fade Stanford as number 4. Mm-hmm. All right, that is all we have time for today. Any more questions, as always, reach out to us on Twitter. Got a normal slate going again tomorrow. We'll keep you updated with the combine. We'll see if we see any news on Twitter that's steaming lines, if you have to act now on anything. But good episode today. Definitely take into consideration because we're pretty fire at the futures market, okay? I'm not going to lie. So take our early value while we can, and we'll update you guys throughout the week. So good luck with your bets. We'll see you guys tomorrow.